we will see briefly how forms work in Flutter, and as a final result we will have something like this, and we will have 3 inputs, one for the name, one for the password, and one for the email. And if we tap the save button, it will validate our inputs, and if we try to insert some values, it will accept it, and it will give us our end result. Before, we have to know why we should use forms. So using forms will help us in automating some tasks. For example, we can create a lot of inputs and wrap them into our form, and using only one function to validate them all. And so it will help us to make things easy. So let's see briefly how forms work. So what we have to know about forms is that we have a form widget that is the wrapper, and inside it we have to put all our inputs. And after doing so, inside our inputs we will use 2 main features, the validate and the save feature, and inside them we will use some functions. The main feature of the forms is that when you will call the validate method from the form, you will validate all your inputs from the validate parameter that you have defined inside the input. And the same thing works for the save method, that will go through all the functions inside that you have defined inside the inputs. So it may seem a little bit complex, but it's really easy, and you will see that in this video. So now let's create our form, and what I have did so far is that I have used only the main Dart file, and I will use only this, and I have put the material up here, and I have used only the home and the body from the scaffold, and here I have called my stateless widget. It's pretty that. So the first thing that we have to do is to create a global key, and to do so we will create a new variable called keyForm, where we have to call our global key function that will give us a global key. And then inside our build method we will call the form widget, and we have to give it a keyForm. Okay, so now we are done. After doing so, I will start creating and inserting my inputs. So I will use a list view, children. I will use the auto formatter, Control Shift E for those who don't know, and inside it I will put a simple container with some text. So just for static, we've written some inputs as you can see here. Maybe I will put a little bit of padding, 12 maybe. Okay, seems good. So now what we have to do is try to create our text form fields, and I will use a decoration that I have already written, so to make things faster. And here I have defined the decoration with input decoration, the widget input decoration with a hint text, so it will show insert your name, as you can see here. When you don't have any value inserted, it will show that hint text. So after doing so, I will do the same for the password field and the email field. So maybe here I will put insert your password, and insert your email. Okay, seems good. So now we have to create some controllers, and to do so we will go here and define other variables. For example, here I used the name variable, and I call the text editing controller function. After doing so, we will copy our name variable and we will use it here as a controller. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the password and the email, and we have to do the same thing. So controller, password, here controller, email. Okay, and here, as you can see, if you try to type right now, you have plain text for the password, and you have a widget here, obscure text. You have to put it to true, so now the text is obscured if you try to write inside it. So the last thing that I want to do is insert a REST pattern where okay, I will put a child text with bright, with save maybe. Okay, on pressed I will call a function. We call it save form. So for those who have started that are beginners, remember that here you don't have to call this function, but you only have to pass it, and the reset button, when you press it, it will call this function for you, so you don't have to use the parentheses. Okay, I will define here my function void. Okay, print saving, just to make sure that everything works fine. Okay, as you can see, print saving. So what we have to do right now is that we have to define our validators inside our inputs, and I have already created it, so I will copy and paste it. So how the validator works is that you have a value. The value is the value that you will insert inside the input. So if I insert something like this, the value, it will be this one. So how validators work is that it will give you a value, and as you can see here, I check that the value is empty. If it is empty, I will return a string. If it is not, I will return null. So how it works is that if you return back a string, it will print it as an error message here below, as I will show you after a few seconds, and if everything is okay, you have to return null. So to make the form go through all the validators, right now we have only one, so it will go only throughout this one. We have to say to the form that we have created, this one, and we have to use a property inside the current state, and we have to call the validate method as I have explained before in the image. So when I will call this validate method, it will go throughout all the validators inside our text form fields. So in this case we have only one, so it will go only throughout this one, and it will validate, and if one of them is it will return a string, so it has an error, it will stop, and it will not continue. So let's see if everything works fine. As you can see, it prints out our error message, this here. So now let's do the same thing for the other inputs. So use validator here, and the same thing for this one, for the email. So what I have did here, I have tried to do something a little bit different just to show you what you can do, and maybe you have to do a little bit more, but just for the sake of demonstration. So same thing, you have the value here for the password. I check that the length of our inserted password is more than 7 characters. If it is not, it will print out this message here. The same things goes for the email, same things I mean the validator, and here I check if the value doesn't contain this doesn't match the gmail.com at gmail.com, it will print this error here. If I leave all these fields blank and I click save, you will see all the errors. So okay, now as for the save method, before using the save method we will create a simple class just so we can save in a structured way our data. So the class is called user, it has a string name, password and email. It's a really easy object, nothing special, and I will use a variable to instantiate our user, maybe with final. Okay, and right now let's use another important feature, that is the onsaved. For the onsaved, it works pretty like the validator. So when we will write we will call the save method like the validate, it will go throughout all the onsaved, and it will save our values. It will execute this function. We are saying to it that that after calling the save method, it have to perform this action here. In this case, it has to put the new value, because just like the validator, it will give us a value. So new value, I will assign this new value to the instantiated user here. So here we will have a user with a name null, password null, email null, and when saved it will change these properties to have these new values. So the name will be the new value, and the same thing have to be done with the other properties. But remember that the unsaved here will only get executed if all the validators are okay. That is this is because we will tell it to work like this. So I will show you briefly right now. Okay, so here we will check, since it will give us back a boolean. We will check if the validate functions are all okay. If are all okay and it didn't return any error, it will return a boolean with true. So after doing so, what we have to do is that we have to use the same key always current state, and we have to call the save method. After doing so, it will, as I said, it will go through all the unsaved functions and will execute for everyone the related function. As you can see here, it will save the new value to password, the new value to email, and let's print the end result to see if everything works fine. Yeah. Okay. Now, if we type save and we have all the fields wrong, if we have some of them wrong, it will not print anything. And here, same thing. If we try to write an email, test.com, it will not work. If we change this to Gmail, it works, and as you can see, it has printed out the user name. So as you have seen, this the forum in Flutter, it really makes our life a lot easier, and it's really easy. You just have to understand some little bit things like the validator or the unsaved, but in reality are a really easy process. You will learn it in a few minutes, a couple of minutes. And that's it for this video. So see you the next time. Bye.